All right, cool.
Are we ready?
Yeah, I think so. So,
Right.
Hi everyone. Welcome to our emotional and physical stress release webinar chat. And we do have a couple of people saying hi, so that's good. So what I thought we would do first, Sukaran, maybe you could just go over a bit about yourself, kind of like your background and stuff, what brought you up to this point, what brought you up to being here and across the hall from me in our offices.
This could go on for a little while.
Well, make it brief.
My whole life is kind of involved here, but okay, I'll give you the short version. So the short version is when we work in person, I am physically very close to Dr. Marco's office. I'm across the hall. I'm a psychotherapist and I work mainly with families and individuals, couples. So that's sort of my agenda here for the night.
All right, that was nice and brief. Way shorter than I thought. So just give us an idea of your credentials. What have you done? What are your degrees and all that kind of stuff?
That could also take a while.
Okay.
But I'll also give you the short version.
Sure.
So I have a master's in marriage and family counseling, and I do some sex therapy as well, although that's not the focus of tonight's talk. Definitely welcome all kinds of questions around couples, getting along, how we cope with our families individually and together. So that's going to be kind of the topic of tonight's session.
All right, perfect. That's good. All right. Okay, very good. So I had a couple of questions here. I have to go to my other screen here, so let's just hang on. So can I ask you a question, Sigrid?
Sure.
Actually, you did yours, let me do mine, just in case people don't know me. So by the way, I'm Marco Caravaggio. I'm a pediatric and family wellness chiropractor. And then I've graduated in 1994 from the Chiropractic College in Canada. And then after that, I moved to Italy and practiced in Italy for about 20 years. And I opened up a practice in a town that never had a chiropractor before, so that was a lot of fun. And all through my studies in school, I was always interested a lot in neurology. There's a branch in chiropractic special learning called functional neurology, which we're kind of really interested in brain balance and how we can do things to affect the brain function and people's health from that aspect of it. And of course, a lot of that comes into like how people are physically feeling and those kind of things too. And their posture has a big influence on how they feel. And I'll get into some of those things a little later. And so big focus on wellness, and we call it the salutogenic model, meaning what are the steps we can do to help people have a healthier body as opposed to trying to fix a body that's broken or just trying to fix or hide a symptom. We're saying, well, how can we make healthier people? And so I've done a lot of just a lot of research and studying into that aspect of it too, just to kind of find out what helps people be healthy and what kind of steps they can do to help that. And I've studied from a lot of different branches and alternative and regular medicine and everything, kind of put it all together to have some sort of worldview on it, so to speak. And so I'm going to go. We had a couple questions came in first, so I'm going to edit this one a little bit. So the lady said, actually, the person said, I found out that during this whole thing that we're all at home, I found out that it says my spouse is really lazy. What do I do to get them to be more active at home with us?
Good question. And this is the kind of stuff that we sometimes encounter when we're locked up with our spouses for longer time than we normally are, right? So I think in this situation, this is like a perfect situation to take up, to ask for, negotiate a time to talk about this. It's always good when you have something like that you want to have a discussion about, that you negotiate a time when is a good time to talk about it, not just sort of cross the hall when people are busy with something else. So the first thing is to negotiate a time. Second thing would be just to sit down and kind of tell you how you feel about it and how it's affecting you using I statements. So you would say something like, there's a certain amount of tasks that we have in the household, and when I end up doing all of them, I feel like, and you fill in the blanks, what's appropriate for you, and sort of take it from there. You have to give your spouse a chance to kind of respond and maybe even come with some suggestions about how the chores could be more even. And if it's a major problem, if you think that there is like a physical underlying situation or issue, then definitely we should consult the doctor.
Okay, that's interesting. So I've always heard that sort of thing. I always try not to say, why don't you ever do this, this, and this. You just say I when it's on me, that kind of thing, and then it helps to frame it so the person become more sympathetic. Is that the idea, or
Yeah, and
understand it from the other person's point of view? I guess, is that kind of how you're saying?
the idea is to avoid what they call the four horsemen of the apocalypse, which research has kind of shown that many relationships fall into that, the crack of doing that. And that is when you start a conversation with a criticism that then feels like an attack, right?
Right.
Once you feel attacked, you get defensive, which is the second horseman, which then might lead to either stonewalling or just withdrawing from the conversation altogether, or the worst of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, which is contempt.
Right. How would you describe contempt?
I would say contempt is when you've lost respect for your partner, when you start to despise, some other attributes and the things that they do. And that's the most serious thing in a relationship.
Okay, that's good.
Most other things can be addressed. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So just some of the things, just kind of thinking about that when we talk about like neurology and how the brain affects our body and stuff. A lot of times when when we're under stress, the brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain up here, just behind these parts, it's kind of like the most evolved or sort of more advanced part of the brain, is basically kind of what separates humans from animals, so to speak. And it gives us something called executive function, but it also filters our actions and our behaviors. And I just know that when we have stress and we have stress stored in our system, a lot of times the body just decreases blood flow to the prefrontal cortex and pushes it more towards the limbic system, more the areas of the body that pushes more to like fight or flight. And when we're in fight or flight, we're not really flexible as far as thinking about other situations and thinking as a human, so to speak. And the filters for our social stuff kind of goes away. And I know that they've done a lot of what they call SPECT scans on the brains of like serial murderers and serial rapists in prisons and stuff. And the prefrontal cortex guys look like Swiss cheese. There's no activity there. So they lose empathy. And so they can go kill 3 or 5 or 10 people and then go have lunch with their buddies like nothing happened, so to speak. So when we're stuck sort of like in a stress response, it's really important that we can do strategies to kind of break our brain out of that and kind of get us more into what we call a parasympathetic or rest and digest, and do things that can help stimulate our prefrontal cortex. And one of the big things is actually movement, right? That's why just physically moving your body is a very important thing. And I know there's some research in like people with depression and things that they actually just say like physical exercise and actually getting the walk sometimes was as good as other sort of medicines that they may have been taking and things like that as well, just to help them get out of their funk sort of. So, you have any comments about that, or?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I say to my couples when I'm advising them not to spend too much energy on arguing. I tend to simplify it, and I just say, when you're upset, you're really dumb. Your brain is not functioning on an optimal setting. You've effectively closed off some of the oxygen to your brain, and you're now just basically acting on instinct or your emotion, and you're not going to make good decisions. So, by all means, if you need to fight and have the fight, go ahead, but don't expect to solve any problems. And usually what happens after voices are raised and you can feel that yourself activated, it's not positive, right? It gets worse and worse until somebody stomps off or is out. So what I sometimes teach my couples to do in a situation like that is, and this has to be like 100% responsibility for both of the couples, is that they come up with a code word. So they learn to recognize that when they are activated, when they are so angry that they're not gonna, make a lot of sense or do good problem solving, that they call a timeout, basically. Right.
And have you had a couple give me an actual example? I'm just kind of curious what the word would be. Something
what
weird. That's like, it wouldn't be something that would be part of a normal conversation. Like they'd have to say
no,
like fuzzy bananas or something like that.
But I've had couples that are very contentious, right? I mean, it doesn't take much, just like one look of the eye and they're gone, right? So it has to be something that you can use in social settings, right?
Okay, right.
So some couples like to have it something funny, but it's always personal. It's always something that's meaningful to the couple itself, and they come up with it, right? So it just depends on sort of the couple, you know. So the sports couple like to do the whole, you know, red card, whatever.
Right.
So other couples say, you know, I think we need to get going. Is one of the one that couples have come up with in session with me. So it's just all kinds. It just has a special meaning for them, and they have an agreement that, you know, this is what we're going to use to sort of take care of us.
Right. So we should all go pocket with the 2 cards, yellow card, red card.
If
good.
that works for you.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to look at the next question. Okay. One lady said, I need to connect physically with my friends, like hugs, etc. And I can't really do that right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any way to
that is really hard right now. It is really hard now because, you know, when something is wrong with the world, when we are anxious, we look to connect with one another, right? And that's one of our most sort of primal way of feeling good and experiencing safety in the world. You know, when we're kids, we grow up like we're comforted by our parents, right? We're held in their arms and we're made to feel better. And that's very instinctual. You know, that doesn't go away just because we have a pandemic. But there are other ways that you can nurture yourself physically to make you feel taken care of. I mean, hopefully, if you're not living alone, you could do things like take a bath, or give yourself some sort of a massage for a part of your body, use lotion, you know, put on your candles, put on nice music. There are a million things that you can do to make yourself feel nurtured and taken care of until you're able to hug the ones that you want to.
Okay, and I suppose obviously if people have kids, and maybe they can just do more with their kids while they have them around, sort of thing, you know?
Absolutely. If you have a family that you are quarantining with, you know, then by all means, you know, hug your kids, you know, massage your kids. They will love it. Tickle your kids, you know, anything that gives you that that boost of feeling connected and like you're safe.
Yeah. And so just in like my neurology learning, like for women, a lot of times that sort of connection and just like talking and that kind of thing helps them to get into the ease, not necessarily problem solving, but just talking about it helps them to, you know, have their brains nice and balanced and regulated. With boys, you have to kind of make them, you have to run them, you have to move them. And so, like, you know, that sort of connection with my kid is obviously going on a trampoline. He wants to wrestle all the time. So we're always wrestling. That's his thing. Let's go wrestle. Let's go wrestle. And every time, you know, we're going to we got to wrestle. We got to wrestle. So we get on the trampoline, we bounce, and we're wrestling and that kind of thing. And we keep going until, you know, one of us starts crying, you know, whatever. But shot in the head or, you know, punching the kidneys or something like that happens. But so for like, I kind of know from the neurology, like the women need to have connection and talk and connect that way. And boys need to be run. You need to get them up, run until he's tired again, get him up and do it again, sort of thing. And that's how the boy's brain will develop its connections and calm and have its ease. And then the women have to do a lot of connection, like either talking or just being together and that kind of thing. So a lot of connection verbally and, you know, just emotionally with each other. I think is how we've kind of learned the brains differ in those ways, but how you can kind of help each one get into like a situation of ease or less stress, I guess, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's look at the next one. Okay, I'll take one. So there's one lady said, I'm working at home and I'm sitting all the time. And, you know, obviously my back is uncomfortable and that kind of thing. So there's a couple of things to do. So a lot of people think, okay, well, I'm sitting, and people always know that, you know, sitting is not like I'm standing right now doing this talk, right? So most people, they kind of know that sitting isn't necessarily a good thing. But they have the idea that I have to get up and I have to go exercise and something like that while I'm at my desk job. And this is, I don't even have time to do that. So, you know, some of the things I've just learned that actually just standing up and then just sitting back down again, even though that's not ideal, that's still helpful than not doing it at all. So just the fact that people actually physically just get off the chair, even if you just do it for like a second, and put your hands up and do that one time, and then go sit back down again, just that is helpful. It's not as ideal as, you know, walking and moving around. but just the fact that you change the position of your pelvis and your hips and everything, just even for a second, just standing up and sitting back down again. If you just set like a timer or something to do that, ideally I'd like you to get up and move around and stretch or do something else that I might show you. But just people say I don't have time to do that because I got so much work to do. Just actually stand up, set a timer for every half hour, and just like stand up, back down again. Even that is okay. That's just a start. It's just changing the position of the joints and everything, and changing how gravity is affecting you and whatever else. If you have the ability, obviously, to get a standing desk and those kind of things, those are all great. But if you don't have that opportunity, that's one thing. The other thing you might want to consider is well, they're at Winners and some sports shops. There's these little discs that you can inflate with air. They're about like maybe 2 inches big, and it's a disc about that big. And it's like a hard, heavy plastic, kind of like the Bosu balls in the gym. If you know what those are, you can actually sit on that. And what happens is it gives you an uneven surface. So you're always kind of a little bit wobbly. It's not necessarily like people sitting on the balls, which is fine too. Because it's still sitting in a chair, but you kind of sit forward and you have your bum on that. And that chair gives it always a bit of motion that your body always has to do some like correcting, as you're not just jammed in the chair and not moving at all, totally still. So that can sometimes be helpful, just to have a little bit of mobility in the spine. If you really don't have time to get up and move around, if you're like stuck, that's just some thoughts I have in them.
Yeah, just to add to that, make sure that you are sitting comfortably and wearing comfortable clothes.
Yes. Very good point. Like you don't want like a tight belt or something, cutting off circulation to your legs and that kind of thing, right? Okay, so one lady said, I can't juggle. What did she say? I can't juggle my work at home and my kids at the same time and trying to homeschool them.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, I think a lot of especially women, because women tend to take on more of the sort of homework and the following up on homework for the kids. A lot of people have been put in this completely untenable situations where they're expected to do their job, take care of the home, and be a teacher all at the same time. Well, you've just been giving like 3 jobs from going to one, and there's just no way that you are going to be able to do all those things. So part of this is, the reason why we're also stressed is we have no control over what's happening, right? So the only thing that we have control over is how we respond to it. In this situation, when you end up with a triple job, you need to accept that some things are not going to get done, and that has to be okay. Obviously, we probably can't afford to. Nobody can afford to play around with their jobs, but also, it's important that the kids don't like fall back on the homework, right? So probably the housework is going to be the last thing that's on the list. But really, this is about accepting that it's not going to be perfect and being okay with that.
Mm-hmm. So by the way, we have a couple of new people joined us. So if you're joining right now, and if you have any questions about physical or emotional things that are affecting you right now, or if you have any questions in general for us that we might be able to help you with, there's at the bottom of the screen, you should see a little thing where you can put on Q&A or chat. So just put your thing into there. And so if actually, just out of curiosity, just people say, if you can hear us, just say, yes, I can hear you. Just make sure we're actually, I'm following it on another computer on the side, and I can see that we're broadcasting. But if those who are online right now with us, there's Michael and I think Bethia and some other people there. So if one can just say, yes, hello, I can hear you and everything is good, that would be great. So we're also broadcasting live on YouTube and I think on Facebook. So I think that would be good. Let me just check a couple of things here, Sigrun. Just give me a second.
Sure. In the meantime, maybe let's talk about kids a little bit and how they are sort of dealing with this pandemic and being locked down. I find with my clients in family therapy, I find that the mistake that parents make the most is that they think that their kids do not realize what's going on with them. And more times than not, your children are more connected with what's going on with you and in your life and in your mood than you realize. So that's like number one. They know. And
Yeah.
if you are in a bad mood or respond poorly, they tend to think that it's their fault. So you need to be careful here. Like Michael said before, I just want to expand upon that, like tired kids are good kids. So
Mhm.
now that we have the better weather, by all means, let's go outside, even if it's just into the yard. Take a walk, do
Yes.
something physical, expend some of that energy.
Mhm.
So there is time, and if you have two care providers, obviously, take turns taking care of the kids and keeping them occupied. But it's sort of like you can have the choice of keeping your children occupied, or they can occupy you. So it's a question about being proactive with the little ones.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's really important. And just going back to a lot of the neurology stuff, that like when your brain is developing from about like conception, about 3 years of age, the right side of the brain is putting more connections together. And we kind of say that the right side of the brain develops your EQ, and then your left side will develop your IQ. So the EQ is understanding body language. So like, kids can really just pick up on like, just how you look, and they can pick up tension and all that kind of stuff. Even if you're not saying anything, they're getting all the nonverbal cues and all that kind of stuff. And I know that, a lot of times kids, they'll start to have like, we say nocturnal enuresis, and they'll start peeing in the bed after that's already kind of in body trained, maybe they're like 7 or 8. If that starts happening again, sometimes that's them giving you like, there's a subconscious cue that they know that something's happening with you, or maybe something's happening, or they're in a bit of a tricky situation sort of thing, and that's kind of their bodies giving a physical sort of call for help sort of thing. So that sort of connection that you're talking about is really, really important. And like I say, if people are lucky enough to have a front yard or a backyard, just get out there with the kids and just do something with them, right? Connect with them, just get on the grass and move around and play and do what you can to be connected with your children, for sure. That's really important.
Yeah. Maybe a word on teenagers while we
Yes.
sort of continue. First of all,
Yeah,
if you have a teenager that's talking to you, you're already doing a good job. It is the work of a teenager to develop away from you, right? They are developing their own independence. So it is to be expected. But of course, teenagers really live for their friends, because that's the way that they are developing their own selves. They are mirroring, what do I like? Who am I? What are my values? How do I show up in society? And their friends take the part in sort of giving them that feedback. So in general, they are usually the sort of age group that's handling this pandemic the best, because they like to sleep. and most of them are not too upset about not going to school. But if you want to have a meaningful conversation with them, where it's not like you are telling them what to do, then sit down with them in a way where you listen, and you listen to understand by paraphrasing what they're saying in your own words, and checking in for them for how they feel about what they're saying. If you really want to make a teenager, or any person for that matter, feel like they understand you, that's the way to do it.
Can you give me an example of a paraphrasing? Because I know a lot of times, a teenager might say, "Oh, you guys don't know anything. You're stupid old people, and you don't understand, my music," or something like that. How would you just give me an example of a paraphrasing a phrase, a typical something a teenager might say, and something the parents should say back to them?
Yeah, I think you've actually said, something that's very common, just perfect. I would say something like, "Wow, it really sounds like you feel like, I don't understand what's going on with you." And that must be frustrating, to feel like you're having an experience that nobody understands. And once you're able to do that in a way where the teenager can kind of glom onto something there, they'll say, "Yes, oh my God, it's so frustrating." Because we all communicate to be understood. And once we're understood emotionally, that is really half the victory.
That's great. Okay, cool. So another question, a live one came in. She said, "Dr. Marco, that wobbly seat you were mentioning, is it good to use for someone who drives long distances, obviously, if it doesn't distract from driving safely?" Yeah, you actually can. So I wish I had the name for it. I don't remember. This to kind of look like this. So it's kind of like this. On the bottom side, it has nubs So this part is put over that has these.
Dr. Marco, your sound is cutting off when you're like away from the computer.
When I go away?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Now you're better.
Great. I mean, I'm plugged in, so.
Well,
okay, yeah. Are you still okay here?
Yes.
Okay.
I think maybe
So-
it had something with you turning away from your face away from the computer.
Got it?
Nope. Lost you.
Wow, that's weird. Okay. All right. I've got to plug in a little better. So anyway, on the underside
Yes.
of this, there's all these little bumps. On the top side, it's nice and smooth, and it's about this thick. So it's like a disc. And you can get it at most sporting stores and things like that. So that you would have no problem putting that under your seat while you're driving, because it wouldn't distract you from driving, and it would just cause a little bit, oscillation and thing to keep your body moving a little bit. So that's fine. You could do that. All right, cool. Okay, somebody asked about what are some exercises I can do at home if I can't go outside or anything like that. So just a couple of things, depending on your and your strength levels. So I usually tell people quick squats are a really good one, because it doesn't take a lot of space, and you just need to kind of squat up and down. And if you have the strength to do it, just push-ups and sit squats are actually two pretty good ones, because you kind of cover a lot of body parts and a lot of muscles all at the same time. Kind of like there's a category of they're called power lifters, that they do deadlift, squats, and bench press. And those three exercises put together kind of cover most of the muscles in your body, getting a workout sort of thing. So I'll just show you what the squat will look like. I'm just going to take this out, but I'll just show you what it looks like, okay? That's the look of, we just call it the standing squat, basically. So your feet are shoulder distance apart, and you put your arms out in front of you to counterbalance the weight of your body going down. Go down to your legs are about horizontal, parallel with the ground, and then come back up again. Do it fairly briskly, and there's no golden rule about how many times, 10 to 15 times, that kind of thing. So I tell people to do that. And then if you have the strength to do push-ups, do some push-ups. So obviously the guys try to do it with your legs, straight, and if the women need to do it on their knees to get, less leverage, that kind of thing, that's fine to do as well. So those are two pretty simple exercises to do. And there's another. Ooh, okay, here's a question for Sigrun, I think. My spouse is spending too much time on the internet now that we're home. Can we get that to change?
I'm sorry, can we get that to change? Okay, first of all, what is too much time, and who are you to judge that it's too much time? if he has the time and that's their free time, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you would like to engage your spouse, again, it would be a matter of talking to them about saying, there's something that I'd like to talk to you about. Is now a good time? And if they are amicable to that, then say, when you spend that much time on the computer, it makes me feel isolated or lonely, and I miss you. Is there a way where we can negotiate that, you go from 6 hours to 3 hours, or something along those lines, something that will work.
Okay, that's good. So another lady just sent in, not a question, but if you're waiting in a lineup to enter the grocery store and you've got about 20 to 30 minutes to do some stepping at the pavement and squats holding the handle of the car, leg lifts are good too, LOL. So
that's an excellent comment.
That's right. Yeah, because obviously that's becoming sort of our new sort of thing now. We're standing around a lot sometimes waiting to go into places. So obviously I tell people, if you're in a podcast, try to get podcasts on your phone and try to listen to something that could be educational, and I try to steer away from the stuff about what's happening right now, because that can just cause more stress. So just listen to maybe get some podcasts, or some music is fine, but if you can learn something while you're there, if you're learning languages or some sort of thing of interest that you have, and just try to get some podcasts on your phone or whatever, and just listen to that stuff while you're in line, because a lot of us are waiting in lines now more than usual.
True. I'm not really
Yeah.
looking forward to waiting in the line to have my driver's license and health card renewed. That's going to be interesting at the end of this.
Yes, for
We
sure.
had like four months of people trying to have renewal at the same time. But
That's
TED
right.
Talks are a favorite of mine.
Yes.
In lineups. There are some absolutely fantastic TED Talks out there now about almost any topic that you're interested in. So
Yeah,
find a
that's good.
former passion and connect that way.
Very good. And then one other person asked if I can't really, I can't really exercise, like do squats and stuff. Is there something simple that I can just do with my body? So there's a couple of things. So you still hear me okay?
Yes.
I moved back, okay. So a lot of times when people have difficulty with their back and things like that, and if you pay attention to our society, we kind of all become sagittal. Like our society is making us do this. Our whole society is kind of just forward and backwards motion. For
It's because
example,
we're all looking at our cell phones like
right.
this.
So we're looking at our cell phones, we're on our computers, we're driving our cars, we're looking at the TV. We're all kind of like here. And a lot of times our body's starting to lose, I call it lateral stability. So some of the important things I want to do, because it's very common for people to kind of quote unquote blow their back when turning to grab for a pencil and they're kind of twisting and all of a sudden, oh, my back, I blew up my back sort of thing, just from like a little turning motion. So what happens is we're all kind of solid here because we do this all the time and our muscles are used to it. But as soon as you go off that, then all of a sudden, oh. So some of the important things we need to be doing for our spine and our stability are doing things we call it in the coronal plane. So a little simple exercise you can do. So I'm just standing. You're just going to stand. You're going to have your arms at your sides with your palms facing forward. And the idea for this exercise is you're just going to bring your arms up to your sides, bring them up over your head. You're going to touch them together at the top. And I'm still standing. You're not squatting. I'm just showing you this so you can see this on the screen. So when you get your hands up to the top, then you're actually going to try to extend them up towards the ceiling a little bit. So you're going to elongate your spine and elongate your body up. And then you're going to come back down like this again. So bring it back down to the sides. Okay. So you're going to go. So you're keeping them flat, facing forward like this. Okay. You're going to touch them overhead. Try to reach up towards the ceiling a little bit, come back down, and then bring them around. So this is doing work in the coronal plane like this. So that can be helpful. And sometimes some other things you can do is actually just take your body and keep your feet pointing forward, and you're just going to laterally just go side to side with your body like that. Because they're the kind of movements that we don't really do that often, and our whole society is becoming this. Our ligaments are becoming used to that, and if we don't challenge it sideways, we can lose stability in the sideways planes. And the second you have to do that, and maybe pull something or something, it can cause a big problem in the back. So that's just some. If you don't have the ability to do squats and all that stuff can tire you out, those are just something that anybody can do this, by the way, too, as well.
And if you're at home and sitting with your kids, just putting some good music on and dancing with your kids is an absolutely fantastic form of exercise. It gets everybody involved, it raises your spirit, it makes you feel good and positive, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and it's much better than doing nothing.
Absolutely agree. I've seen some good YouTube, like Christy from our networking group. Her son and daughter, I guess they were adult dancing around doing things, following something on the TV, and everyone's laughing and having a great time watching it and participating in it. And so lots of fun. That's a really good thing too. Excellent. And, okay, that's actually all the questions, Sigrun.
All right.
So, do you have any closing remarks?
Maybe I can talk about a few things that you can do as an individual. If you are an individual or you know somebody close to you who is really anxious, we are recommending to do the slow breathing to calm in a rhythm of three, count to 3 as you inhale and count to 6 as you exhale. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Research is showing that this is now the best sort of technique that we can intervene between our emotions and our feelings to calm our system. What it does, it helps our blood pressure calm down, our heartbeat goes down, and we return to our neocortex, back to our sort of good problem-solving brain that we talked about earlier in the session. Some other things that you can do is definitely connect socially with the people that you are closest to. And if you, I mean, obviously, if you can't do it in person, then by means of, you know, video sessions or phone calls. Skype is free all around the world. It's very simple to use, and it's being used very actively these days. Some other things that you can do is talk to your spouse, lean into your spouse for support if you are suffering, and if everything else fails, by all means, you know, get some professional support. There are lots of people, therapists like myself and others, that are providing a sort of sliding scale because of the pandemic. So this is a great time to form a relationship with a professional.
Yeah, that's really good. Just add a couple of things. Basically, the breathing. A lot of times, what we need to do, there's a big. Hopefully, you can still hear me. So there's a big nerve that comes out of our skull. It's called the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve it's really becoming a big focal point of research and science, and as regarding to stress, because it basically comes out of your brain, but it controls pretty much most of your internal organ function. And it's really very well connected with what we call the parasympathetic, or the rest and digest part of our body, which is where your body is like slowing down, recovering, digesting, absorbing nutrients, and all the good things that we need to be, you know, as functional humans. So the few other things like Sigrun, it's really important that breathing thing. So we can exhale longer than you inhale. It has a tendency to help us switch over to the vagus nerve and the parasympathetic, or the rest and digest side of our body, and takes us out of that stress response. There's a few other things that we can do, like for vagus nerve, to help it. Just like sometimes exercising is actually good, even though you're exercising your body and it's causing like a sympathetic thing. There's a reflexive sort of vagus relaxation for your body when you exercise it. Prefrontal cortex, again, like that important part of our brain. And they've also found that cold stimulation, cold water, or like cold exposure outside, can help the vagus nerve. And I know there's some towns in the old days in Russia, they actually put the babies out when in the wintertime to just expose their faces. They were all covered up, but they actually were exposing their faces to the cold to help, it's almost like to stimulate the system, but to get this working. And with some researchers, they find like just if you have cold water, if you're having a shower, sometimes people do hot and cold contrast showers, or in some Norwegian countries, they might go into the sauna and then jump in the ice water and come back into the sauna again, that kind of contrasting hot and cold. But they basically find if you put cold water in your face or on your upper chest, has a tendency to stimulate the vagus nerve. A few other things inside your brain, where the vagus nerve comes out, there's another, we call it like a nucleus. There's a collection of neurons that are inside your brain, and there's one called the superior salivatory nucleus, which is involved with like lacrimating or tearing, and your vocal cords and your epiglottis. So when people gargle, or if they sing or they hum, making that thing in the back of your mouth go up and down, when you open your mouth, you think, ah. So when you make that go up and down, either by gargling or singing or humming, that goes back to the same area of your brain where the vagus nerve is, and stimulate that one vigorously. It's almost like exercising your vagus nerve as well. So they just found that vigorous gargling, if you take a drink of water, you just gargle, but you're gargling for like maybe 30 seconds pretty vigorously, that can be helpful as well. And there's a few other things. Chiropractic care, we found that helps too. So sometimes the chiropractic care I do, that's called network spinal care. When people have filled out questionnaires and things about it, they just kind of feel that it sort of suspends the sympathetic nervous system, like the light touches that we do, and it helps the body go into the parasympathetic and pay attention to itself. Because a lot of times the body kind of gets disconnected when it's in the stress response, and when you tell your brain, oh, here I am, I'm here, pay attention to me, it switches back over to the vagus nerve and the rest and digest system to pay attention and be more self-aware, and that's really important as well. Those are some of the main ones I can think about for the vagus nerve. I know there's a couple of others, but those are some of the main ones that are simple to kind of put those at home to help their situation in general.
If there are no more questions, I just have some closing comments, maybe for those of you who are sort of spiritually inclined. This is a good time to sort of meditate, to reflect upon your life and think about all the things that are working and not working. We are probably not going to have another period of time where we have this kind of time. Although some of you I know don't have a lot of time because you have 3 jobs right now, and I recognize that. Other than that, I just encourage everybody to sort of express thanks for everything that they have. Gratefulness and thankfulness is really healthy and actually can lead to happiness. And if you think you have nothing to be thankful or happy about, just think about the people who are separating in place right now. That's a very difficult situation to do, and you have it much better than a whole lot of people. So everybody has something to be grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a lot of times people say, oh, you know, my life is a total mess. And I say, well, if you're able to open your eyes in the morning and put your feet on the ground and walk to go take your pee in the morning, you should be grateful just for the ability to do that, because a lot of people can't even do that, right? See where they're going, walk. There's always something you could be grateful for. All right, that's great. So Sigrun, I want to thank you for participating with me. This is really awesome. And if there aren't any other more questions, hang around maybe another minute or two. If people are still on, if you'd just like to say hi or say bye, and that would be great. So we have a few people on. I know there's still a couple of there. So I appreciate everyone for showing up, and I guess we'll end it there. Thank you, Sigrun.
Bye.
Okay, bye everyone.